From the Pacific Northwest to around the world, you are about to powerfully connect with Angela Rae.
Hey, greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Power to Connect. I'm Angela Rae. It is always good to be here with you. It's always good to see you. I hope you all are doing very well. You know, the COVID numbers are starting to tick up again. So put your mask on, socially distance, wash your hands, and just take good care of yourself. Because here at the Power to Connect, we care about you. And I'm really excited today to connect with another journalist, two journalists talking. I'm so excited. Andrea Henderson, who is with NPR in St. Louis, is here to talk to us today. Andrea, welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of season 1 of the Power to Connect. There's nothing like connecting two journalists together to chop it up and talk about all the stuff we've been through and all the stuff we might be going through. So anyway, good to have you with us.
It's good to be here.
I don't even know where to start. So okay, I didn't go to school for journalism. I got into it, whatever. Tell me your path to get to where you are, because what we want to do here on the Power to Connect is we want to help folks. And if you are interested in being a journalist, there are more routes than you can imagine to getting there. As I just said, I was not one. I had a business degree and a law degree. But this young lady has an undergraduate and she also did graduate work. Talk to us. Talk to me quick.
A lot of journalists my age are they actually went to journalism school. Most of them, the ones that I've come across. And they went to some of the big powerhouse journalism schools. You have, of course, I went to Newhouse in Syracuse. Then you have folks that went to Mizzou, that went to, USC, or they went to Northwestern, some of the big schools that we always say in NYC. But I went to school for undergrad for journalism as well as grad work for journalism. But now things are so different to the point where you really don't have to, really go to journalism school. You can major in mathematics. You can major in history. That's a good one to major in if you want to go into journalism. You can even major in science. Like a girl that works with me, one of my coworkers, she is an ecologist and she talks about science. Like her beat is the science beat, health and science beat. So, you could go to school for anything. And if you have the chops, if you know how to write, at least, and you have the passion for it, that's really what you need. You just need the passion for it, because journalism is going to take you so many different places, and you may be by yourself, and you have to have that passion, because if you don't like or love what you're doing, especially when it comes to journalism, you're not going to want to be in the field, for the long run. But now there's so many avenues and things that you could do with journalism and storytelling.
Like this.
Yeah.
A podcast.
Yeah, a podcast. You could tell stories on commercials, television, Netflix specials, it's so many different things that you could be doing with your journalism background and whatnot. So you don't have to go to journalism school.
Yeah.
Just
and I think
you have that.
I think it's a good point you're making about majoring in other things and understanding that journalism still needs your background, your bona fides. You talk about the scientist, she majored in biology or whatever. Yes, she's able to talk about COVID, let's say, from a perspective that I'm not able to, or you're not able to. So this is some really good advice you're getting from someone who has just. And when did you graduate from Syracuse? From Newhouse?
I graduated from NPR in 2018.
Okay. All right. So please understand, folks, you're not dealing with someone who's, my age. And back in the day, it was unconventional what happened to me even. I fortunately got hired by a man in Jackson, Mississippi, who said, I don't like to hire people with journalism degrees or communications degrees. I like to hire those who don't have it, because that was just his druthers. And it really worked out for me. And there are a lot of people in this business who do have law degrees. And that, we see that a lot. They're panelists or they have shows, they're hosts. But thank you for making that point. And also, Andrea, how tough is it? Because I know so many citizen journalists, as do you. So has that in any way altered the way you do your business?
No, because sometimes they can help. Like, I'm not so, because of the pandemic, when I first got to St. Louis, it was like 2019, and I was traveling a lot with the gig. And then, I was in the community a little bit, but I told myself, okay, 2020, I'm going to really get into the community and like really learn what's happening. But I couldn't because the pandemic hit. So I actually relied on some of those citizen journalists because they had, their camera going around seeing what was happening. They were showing what was happening during the protests and things like that. And I wasn't out there because, one, it was unsafe. And then two, I felt unsafe because I was alone here and I didn't want to get COVID. So that was during the time where we didn't really know if you were healthy, you're going to still die, So I just was like, well, I'd rather just try to do everything that I can from in my home and just kind of follow what's happening and call these people if I need to. But they actually help with us learning what's happening in the streets or in these communities that I may not even know about. Right. And they bring their work to us, or they'll say like, hey, this is what's happening. You want to talk to somebody in the streets about it. Like I can get you straight to them. So I appreciate the citizen journalism. Now, however, there are some that...
Having said that, comma.
Yeah, there are some that are kind of, they just put whatever out there. And right. But you always have to do your background and things like that. But you kind of know which group of folks are really out there to put the real news out there to show what's actually happening versus those folks who are just trying to throw something up on the web to get some views.
I want to talk about how you actually, because I need folks to understand this. Andrea, obviously, is a young woman, a beautiful young woman. She started her career in Washington, D.C. Okay, that's like a top 10, top 20. That's like unheard of is what I'm trying to get to. Okay. She had the support, the admiration and the respect of someone at her school who made a suggestion. Tell us about that.
So I started my journalism career, I'll just say print journalism career in Houston. And
H-Town in the house. All right, I'm back.
That's originally where I'm from. And, I just was small thinking when it came to journalism. Like I just always knew I wanted to see my name in print. I wanted to write. I wanted to be behind the scenes, and possibly move to magazines and things like that, do entertainment reporting, and I actually started off when I went to school in Dallas, my internship was at a Black newspaper. And I used to always say, like, I love Black newspapers, they talk to the community, but I don't want to be pigeonholed into just only talking about Black things. But then slowly but surely, as I matured and kind of like grew into my journalism career, I started to realize, like, wait a minute, if we're not telling these stories are not going to be told. So I need to go back to my community and start trying to leave them behind. And I continued to work, in newspapers, but then like that field, the media field just started to go kaput, during the like 2009, 10, 11 time. And it was hard finding a job. Like I was laid off twice. And I was just like, okay, what else do I need to do? And I had a friend of mine.
This was as a result of the economic downturn. We were in crisis in 2009. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you were at a newspaper in H-Town.
Okay. I was at a newspaper in Houston, and then I was laid off from there, and I started doing some freelance work. It was freelance like PR work, freelance communication work, magazine, but of course that was not substantial. So I was just like, okay, what else am I going to do? And I took a actual full-time position doing communication work at a mortgage company, which was cool. But I knew deep down inside of me that it was something else I was supposed to be doing. I'm not supposed to just be sitting here doing communication work at a mortgage company. And then like a friend of mine who's actually like one of my mentors, she had her own PR company in New York, and she had a business in Houston that needed like some support. So I supported her with that or whatnot. And then it was in Third Ward. And so I got to know a lot of the people in Third Ward, like a lot of my, like, you know, my people walking on the streets, my homeless folks, you know, my neighbors, community members, you know, and they had so many stories. And when I tell you, it was these stories that really propelled me into going back to journalism school, because I was just like, okay, why are we not talking about how some of these people are still suffering from Hurricane Katrina, mental conditions from Hurricane Katrina? And then why are we not talking about how a lot of these people in the Black community does not have, you know, good, it's not good healthcare. They don't have any good grocery stores over here. It was just so
food
many
deserts.
It was
environmental
so many
stuff.
stories.
So many stories.
And I was just like, whoa, wait a minute, Andrea, this is what you have to tell. And I couldn't figure out like what medium it was going to be. I was going to tell it on, but I knew I needed to go back to school because I felt like I was a little bit behind, because I was hearing now podcasts were coming out and like all these other gadgets and gadgets, things, people were telling stories different ways. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't teach myself this. Let me go back to school. So that's why I went back to school. And so my teacher, one of my professors at Syracuse, it was like a multimedia course. And he was just like, okay, we're going to tell stories in podcast form. And I was just like, okay, whatever. I did it. He heard it in class. Everybody in class heard it. And it was just like, oh, this is good, Andrea. And it was about Harriet Tubman. And but little did people know, like her home is in Auburn, New York. And, you know, I went to Auburn. I spoke with family. I don't know if she was a family member, but she worked at the home. You know, I got a tour. It was just so many great things to talk about Harriet Tubman. And this is before the movie came out and everything. So, you know, we put that out and it got some views on like the SoundCloud that were listening, subscribers, I guess, on SoundCloud. And that is what pushed my professor to say, Andrea, you should try this. And I was just like, okay, we'll figure it out. You know, I hate my voice. I'm country. We'll see if I like it. And then he was like, nope. We're doing this. We need your country voice on the radio. We need more Black reporters.
Now, let me just pause you. Let me just pause for cause here. I want folks to know, was that gentleman African-American?
No, he was Asian. He's an Asian man. What
I need folks to understand is your mentors, the people who believe in you, the people who will catapult you to the next level, they oftentimes will not be the same color as you. And you got to roll with that. You got to understand there are good people out there who want to help. Yeah. Everywhere I've been, everything I've done has been because somebody was like, you work hard. Come on, I want to help you. Yeah. I want to work with you because, you know, you're going to make us some money. And that's real. Hold on 1 second. Keep talking. I'm cold in here. I'm going to go turn the heat on. Keep talking. My game.
I just thought about something like I remember they used to, because I was the oldest student in the class. So at least by like 5 or 6 years. And
with your young self telling me you were the oldest one. Get out of here.
I was.
Were they like 18 and 19?
No, they were like 21, 22. And I was just like, I think I just turned like 29 or 30 or something like that. And I just felt, you know, older. However, I had a different mental coming in. I knew like, okay, this is only 10 months of my life. I have to make it, you know, the best 10 months of my life because I'm spending time away from my family and everything that I know. I had no people. I didn't know anybody in Syracuse. It was so far away from everything I knew. I spent time in my professor's classes. Like the professor who told me to apply at NPR, he was just, you know, he worked late. He liked to work late. So I stayed in the class. I talked to him. I asked him, like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I would go to YouTube and learn how to do these things. And then he'll show me. He kind of was just like, nope, I'm not going to give you all the answers. You figured out yourself. Then when you come back to me, we could play with it and fine tune it and things like that. You know, and I did that for each one of my professors because I wanted them to see my face, know that I was sincere and that I wasn't taking this lightly. And that really helped me because I'm still cool with a few of my professors at Newhouse or in Syracuse. And out of that, that literally got me my job. I probably would have came back to Houston after leaving Syracuse if I didn't have that one professor to tell me to apply at NPR.
And what made him say that to you? Did he have a connection to NPR? Or?
He did. He didn't even know. He didn't know anybody at he probably did, but he didn't tell me. He didn't know anybody at the main location in DC, but he used to report out in Cali. He was from Cali. So he was just like, yeah, it's cool. How about you just try a few podcasts out and see which one you like? And I went through a few of them. And I was just like, oh, well, this one jumps out to me because it's talking about race, which was Code Switch. And I applied for it, did the interview, and fell in love. And
so time out. So you got on the Bolt bus or whatever. You came down to DC. You went to NPR, which that's their headquarters. Am I right or wrong?
Mm-hmm, the headquarters in DC.
Went to the headquarters. I used to drive by it all the time, the 10 years I lived there. And you showed up to show out. You got a job.
And it was an internship, but it was a good internship.
Yeah.
Because I knew that this was going to turn into something different. And I used NPR the same way I did at school. Like I talked to everybody I could talk to. And that wasn't even what of course they told us that like during internship training or something like that. But I literally took that to heart and I made connections. And it wasn't like I'm making a connection just so I can get a job, but it was making a connection because later down the line, I might need you or you might need me for something.
Absolutely.
And that was just the way that I've kept my relationship. And still to this day, I'm getting work because it could be freelance work because of someone I met.
So again, what we're talking about here is really what Andrea just talked about is the power to connect. Mm-hmm. And it is very important that you have people on your side. I call them godfathers or godmothers. It's very important that you impress people, that people are impressed with you, that they see how hard you work, that you are not afraid to talk to them, that you're not afraid to talk to the president of the organization or the whoever's over operations or et cetera, et cetera. All these people can be very important to your life, to what's coming next. And Andrea is showing us how to take advantage of that. Like she's saying, I'm not trying to use anybody. No. That's what we do. I want to connect with people. I want to connect with people because there may be something I can do for you. There may be something you can do, but at the end of the day, we're making the world a better place. That's what we're trying to do. That's what us connecting should do.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that probably helped me when I was there was I didn't know anything about NPR, and I didn't know who these famous audio journalists were. I didn't know who these hosts were. Like I've heard of like maybe 2 or 3 of them, but all the rest of them I didn't know. So it was just like, oh, this is a random lady. Oh, this is Nina Toner. Oh, okay, cool. Like, oh, and then I'll go and Google. I'm like, oh, snap. But it's just like, I've met these people. I've spoken with these people. We've had conversations. We sat down and had lunch, or I'll walk by Audie Cornish desk, or I'll walk by Elsa Chain, and it was just like, oh, that's who this is. Oh, okay, cool. I spoke with her the other day. She saw me smiling face in the restaurant, it was so random. And I think it's because I didn't know these people. And so, sometimes if you know somebody, you kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say. I'm a little stuck up, or am I just going to be like quiet or shy? I didn't know these people from the person next door to me. And I'm just like, oh, hey, how you doing? Oh, I like those shoes. Where did you get those from?
You're just real. You're just real. It's saying you talk country. Look, you are a real Texan and we like people, we like people and people like us because we like people because we keep it real. So it is no surprise that, you know how to handle yourself around folks. I've had, when I was a former news anchor for CBS, was out to dinner with a friend once and didn't like my waiter and where we were. So they moved us to another table. And so the table in front of us, everybody turned around and, I just nodded, smiled and nodded. But when they got up to leave, one lady was a straggler and she was doing the slow creep walk. And she turned around and she said, are you Angela Rae? And girl, I didn't have any makeup on. I was looking like, who did it and what for? And I was like, yeah. And she said, oh my God. And she started shaking and tears came to her eyes. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, you okay? What's wrong? And she was like, I can't believe I'm meeting. I was like, girl, you cannot be crying over meeting me. This is, I just don't see myself as being that interesting or that important. But that's the kind of stuff that, is real, and I remember going to my news director once and saying, I don't understand, he's like, Angela, you come out of the same boob tube as Julia Roberts. I'm like, okay, I get it now. You're on TV, this is not, you're on the radio, they know your voice, they know the name, and then when you, you do meet somebody, it is kind of like, whoo, you try not to act a fool, but I understand, and given that I was a public figure and as my friends like to say, I was a pseudo celebrity, I understand that people are excited to see you, in particular when your personality is such that it's welcoming and warming. People knew I can go to her and she won't yell at me. She's the same crazy person she is on TV. Yeah. So, I have to say this as a television journalist. I've always said, I think the real journalists are those newspaper people. And a lot of that is because you have the time to tell the story. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of really smart, great broadcast investigative journalists. Mm-hmm. But the work that is done often by newspaper folks that's what I hang my hat on. Even though I am a television person, I don't watch local television news. Now, I watch a lot of national, international news, and I read a lot. But even as a news anchor, I remember when I got the main anchor job in Miami and my boss was asking me about the other stations. He was like, well, what do you think? I said, I like everybody. I don't have an opinion. I said, I'm not looking at what the other station's doing. I'm looking at me. And every day I need a different Angela, a better Angela to show up, Oh, I botched that today. Better Angela's going to show up the next day. And he fell out laughing. He said, Angela, he said, that's the sign of a true gamer. Yeah, I'm not interested in what anybody else is doing. What am I doing? And make sure you're doing it to the excellence that your mama and your daddy and everybody in your family expects. Because that's it. We represent, our names are out there. Your name is out there, as part of, what you're doing. So we represent not just yourself, but your family and quite frankly, I represent African Americans. I represent the fact that African American children can be and will be main anchors, making all kinds of money. They will be on their journey to being big time. We need our kids to see more of this and children of color. Yeah. Yeah. I went off on a rant.
We do. And I think what helps that is like journalists like me, the younger folks or whatnot. Like I just did last weekend a teaching for it was just like high school students who were interested in journalism or whatnot. And there was a few of us reporters that are here in St. Louis. Older ones and younger ones, but the younger ones, of course, we reached the high school students because of our age and how close we are and things like that. But they had so many good questions and so many of them wanted to reach out. And it's just kind of because they were just saying, like, we don't often see, journalists of color. And whether it's on television or radio or, newspaper, we don't know these names behind the newspaper. So it's just good to see, hey, there are people that look like me, whether I'm Black, white, Hispanic, or Black, Hispanic, Asian, or if I have a disability or whatever the case may be, is somebody that looks like me that if they can do it, I know I can do it.
That's it. And I thank you for focusing on our kids because they deserve the best. And that's not often what society is throwing their way.
And it's social media.
Yeah. Oh my God. Social media. When it started, I said, that's the devil right there. Actually, I said that about the internet. That's just because I didn't want to learn how to use a computer. Mm-hmm.
That's so long ago.
Girl, I was so late to the game. That's so trifling. I'm trifling.
So long ago.
I was late to the game. Girl, I would have people, you go do that for me. I got to the game.
When did you start using a computer?
Well, like I would use it at work, meaning I knew how to use the work computer, but I wanted to research the AIDS crisis in Africa. And so somebody was my producer on a lot of my stuff. And so I was talking to her. She goes, oh, I'll go do that. I was like, oh, good. She goes, I said, no, I don't know how to do that yet. I'm not telling you what year that was. And then when I came back from New York, back to Miami, I was like, well, got to get one.
I got to learn. Yeah.
Girl, but I had the dial up.
I think everybody had that one though.
Yeah.
But
AOL. But this year, oh yeah, don't forget that. I still have friends with their AOL account. And then somebody the other day, I said, okay, sir, what's your email? Girl, he gave me a hotmail.com. I was like, oh my God.
I didn't know it was still available.
I didn't know.
Oh my
God. So let me back up a little bit. Let's go back to when you were in DC. Mm-hmm. And tell us about the show. Was it a podcast that you were working on? Tell us about that.
So I started off at Code Switch. It's a race and culture podcast. And they basically will talk about, it could be in-depth stories, kind of enterprise stories, or it could be what's happened now, because so many things are happening with race. Or when I started there, it was we did a lot of enterprise stories, but then we also kind of focused on whatever was happening in the news with race or whatnot. But now it's just like, they have so many good stories to tell because of the climate that we're in or whatnot. So it could be anything from, let's see, what would we talk about? We were talking about...
like what stands out for you? Was there a story that stood out for you that had an impact on you?
Man, they had so many of them. But you know what? The reason why I wanted to apply to them, the story that stood out the most before I actually started working with them was they did a story about the incident that happened in Charlottesville. And
where I went to law school, by the way.
Oh, you went to University of Virginia?
Law school, absolutely. We do top 10 in my family. Keep it moving.
So yeah, and they were like on the ground there. I think they had like they had a lot of archival footage. They had like conversations with folks there, I believe, if I'm thinking about it right. But it was just so soundly rich.
And we're talking about the incident that happened in Charlottesville with the neo-Nazis saying the Jews will not replace us. Stupid ass shit like that.
Yeah, it was that incident. And
the incident where Heather Heyer, excuse me, because I always say her name, Heather Heyer lost her life.
Yeah.
Doing the right thing, protesting against those jackasses.
What was it called? Ignite the Right? Or what was the rally called? Ignite the Right?
Right. I'm going to figure it out. The right to something, the right to be stupid, the right to be ignorant.
So that really reeled me into Code Switch, because I was like, whoa, it's people telling stories like this. And I just was like, well, I want to be some kind of help. If I can't report, I just want to produce, listen in, figure out like how these hosts tell the show, how they think about these stories. So that one was the one that like really reeled me in. But we did stories with authors, with like I know I had a previous coworker. She was an Asian lady, an Asian woman, and she told the story about why it was offensive to call them yellow, call Asian folks yellow. And so it was a really good in-depth piece about that. So it was just like anybody who had like, because it wasn't just set in stone just for the host or the people who worked on the show to talk about, we would also contract folks in to like, if they had a good story to tell that had to do with race, identity, or culture, then they would, let them tell that story too.
And then again, in talking about the need to impress people, the need to get people on your side, the need to not be so impressed with someone that you can't go and talk to them. Don't be impressed by someone's position, okay? Be impressed by someone's character. Okay. So again, because of the way you connect powerfully with people and understand what needs to happen. Tell us again, you had someone looking out for you and it got you to your next place, which was a full-time job and not an internship.
Yeah. I mean, at NPR, once you get finished with your internship, usually if you want to stay on, they'll find like temporary work for you to do. So I started floating around the building. I was working with like Weekend Edition with Michelle Martin and, All Things Considered Weekend. It was just so many different departments that I started just kind of like jumping in. Hey, let me check in with y'all. Let me see what do y'all need assistance with? But I had a lady there that I kind of connected with through NABJ as well, which is National Association of Black Journalists. And she was telling me about a position at St. Louis Public Radio, which is the NPR sisters, the station in St. Louis. And she was just saying, like, it's a race and culture position. I know you want to report and not produce, because that's what I was doing essentially while I was floating around the building. How about you just go out there? And she kind of like hooked me up with that. And then some of my coworkers at Code Switch, they knew a few folks out here and kind of like to help me get my feet wet and things like that. So it really just worked because I had that, that mentor, that woman at NPR who was just like, hey, this is open. Because I was like in her face, probably like once a week. What else? What y'all got open? What y'all need? Like, I don't want to go back home. Like, I just kept saying, I can't go back home.
You have to be aggressive, right? I mean,
I have to do this.
Yeah. You knew what you wanted and you went for it. And in order to go for it, you understood I have to impress people with my talent. And that's what you did. And that's what we have to do. Folks tease me because of the job I have now about the way I dress, because I, dress up. And I'm like, I'm going to be honest. The way I dress has gotten me almost every, let's say not the initial job, but has been the reason that I've been elevated as quickly as I can. Case in point, in Jackson, Mississippi, where I got my start in TV, I started out as a reporter. Always had a suit on. Now, they had to at some point tell me I had to put makeup on because I don't like makeup, but that's
you would wear makeup,
girl.
Ooh, it's hot out there too, so I could see it.
I was a hot mess, and so thinking I was doing it, and so finally
I need to see a picture of you back then.
Not before.
I'm gonna find you.
There was a black guy. You ain't right. But there was a brother who was, he was the main anchor along with this other woman. He pulled me aside one day. He said, Angela, you are so beautiful. And I was just beaming. And he said, but you need to wear some makeup. I have not been without makeup since then. Furthermore, I didn't realize what eyebrows can do. So when I went to Miami, they were like, we're going to do your eyebrows. What are you going to do my eyebrows? Girl, that's a whole new thing. My whole face was opened up to a whole new way of doing things.
Yeah,
but I'm serious with this, people, about I use clothes, jewelry, makeup, hair. I use all of that to signal. I use it to signal. That's the way we roll.
It's like an opening.
Yes. This is
talk to me.
Absolutely. I'm talking to you this way so that you understand what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to convey my professionalism, that I'm already there while I'm here. See, I'm always going this way. I may be here now, but my eye is there. And part of dressing a certain way is having folks take me seriously. Don't. I don't need you to tell me how. No, I already got this. Help me with the other thing. Tell me about leaving DC. And did you drive to St. Louis by yourself? Oh, you had some help.
I flew. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a car in DC.
Oh, okay.
And I loved not having a car.
Oh, the public transportation, because I'm not someone who normally takes public transportation, but in DC, I lived on the red line. Like it was easy. I lived over there by Van Ness,
Red line. Mm-hmm.
And then one day I made the mistake of driving to work because I had something to do after work. And after that, I drove to work I drove every day. I'm a car driver. Look, when I
What
was
neighborhood did you live in?
I was in kind of close to Friendship Heights. So right where the Venice station where UDC is. Yeah. So I was over that part of DC, which is hard to get to everything else. And then I ended up, Pete and we were in somewhere in Maryland, but I forgot what I was going to ask you. But anyway, DC is very Black. There are a lot of Black people there of all socioeconomic backgrounds. And tell me what it was like then moving to St. Louis. Was it a similar situation, the racial dynamics, or?
Not so much the racial dynamics, because in DC, it's some of everybody there, even though it's a lot of Black people there, but you'll still see some of everybody, out and about. You have all the cultures here, but in some of the places that I go to, it could be days that I'll go without seeing another person of color. So it'll be like Black and white, because St. Louis's population is heavily Black or white. I think the city of St. Louis, I know we lost a little bit of a few residents, and it used to be more Black than it was white. I think it was like 49% Black and 48% white or something like that. And I think it may have like flipped now, only because more white people moving from the suburbs back into the city.
And why is that happening?
It's happening everywhere in every city.
Because my people of color moving out to the suburbs, they're like, no.
Moving to the suburbs. But the thing is, here in St. Louis, it's pretty sad, which I know is happening in other places as well. The city was desolate for so long, and so many Black people lived in the city in like rundown homes, or they were still trying to save their homes that were once, these beautiful, huge homes that, was here during the 50s and 60s, or if not earlier. But now that area, which is what I'm really talking about, the north side of St. Louis, is vacant, a lot of vacant homes, a lot of violence, but people are coming back into the city. And when I say people, I mean white people moving back into the city, because the city just received this new, the NGA building, the National Geospatial Agency, is moving to St. Louis, and they are building a huge agency right in the middle of North St. Louis, where all the vacancy is, where all the Black folks that are still in North St. Louis, that are living, that may be displaced once this agency comes. And that is a telltale sign that, of course, gentrification is going to slowly but surely take over that north side of St. Louis. And the Black people that are living there are very concerned about if they're going to be priced out. And it's beautiful homes over there. I went to this.
What are the politicians saying? I mean,
some of them like the idea, because they think that it's going to bring more money into the city, which they need. They need more money into the city. However, many of them are like, we have to do something about this north side, because we have to protect the people that are here. And we have a Black mayor here, Tashara Jones, and she's really good about getting, if any new business is trying to move into the north side of St. Louis, you got to give us some tax money from this, or you got to give us some money from your business to support these Black folks that are living here so they won't be displaced. So it's like give or take with the Board of Aldermen, with the mayor here, and with some of the contractors. They have to have like a certain amount of course, minority contractors coming in. So they're trying their hardest to do it. But of course, I do a little government reporting or whatnot. I'm not all the way in it, so I just pay attention to it sometimes surface level. However, sometimes I hear it through other reports or whatnot, but I'm not actually in those meetings every week or whatnot to like hear what all these politicians are saying. But from the people, I've talked to the people, and a lot of the people are not satisfied with it, because they are thinking that they're going to be displaced. It may not be 5 years, it could be 10 years from now. And those homes that are, when I say they may look vacant, and to some folks, the natural eye may look ugly, but you know what people could do with a nice home. Like,
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what it looks like. These developers can come in and flip that house around and gut it out, and the old shape, shape on the outside is still be the same, but the inside will be brand new.
This is, and I'm glad you brought up gentrification, because it is an issue that impacts us all over. It's funny, when I lived in DC and we lived in Maryland, we would go up Rhode Island and we would say,
that's where I used to live.
Oh, did you? Oh my God, you were so close to us.
I was just about to say that area is a prime area for gentrification.
All of a sudden, we're like, wait a minute, white people are here now?
Yep.
Whoa. And so, what is damning and hurtful and wrong is that you didn't want our land when you pushed us out there and made us live by the railroad tracks, by the Superfund crap. But all of a sudden, you will find developers and white politicians, some will find our land is valuable. And all of a sudden, they've got plans for it, big plans for it. That means we are not a part of it. Because do those plans include hiring the people who live in that neighborhood to make sure they have jobs, helping in any way you can as a major entity to make sure that folks are able to stay where they are so that you don't look like the big bad wolf? It's the same crap over and over, irrespective of where you live. I'm here in the Pacific Northwest. It's some of the same crap. I live in an historic African-American neighborhood that used to be 80% African. The first, he actually was the second African-American man here, became very wealthy. And this is where he landed in Seattle. And all of a sudden now, Andrea, it's
nothing but white
15% with white people saying horrible things about Black people.
That's what I didn't like about when I was living in DC. Oh my gosh. I just used to get into it with so many white people there, young white people there too, that just, I just felt like they did not respect the land. And I was just like, do you know where you are?
Yeah.
Do you know what kind of people walked down these streets and protested down these streets and what they had to do to live in this area? Respect the land. And I think that's what a lot of people, when it comes to gentrification, I think that Black people are okay with it. But if these white folks come in, just respect the land, just respect the area. There were people there that lived there before you. So don't come in here trying to change rules and get mad when somebody's having a party down the street. Just ask them, can you come? Or do you need me to get,
you're talking about connecting
parking spots in front of your house? Yeah,
right. Connect with people. Instead, what happens is a disconnect. So a disconnect, you know what? We want what you have. So you don't really probably fit in here anymore. Wait a minute. Just wait a damn minute. None of the people who live in the neighborhood are ever hired for your fancy coffee shop that you have on the corner, your fancy donut shop, or your taco, whatever. It doesn't matter. And if that was the case, then this whole gentrification crap would not be so. It just is so racist. And I just would not want to be a part of it. And this is not us, having a conversation about we don't like whites. That's not it at all. This is reality. This is reality. And developers are largely white. I know a couple of Black developers. I know one here in the Pacific Northwest. And guess what? The other one I know, he knows him too. It's his mentor. It's not a lot of us. And even when we are developers, don't expect someone to do what you think they're going to do. Somebody may be Black, but they're a developer and they are doing some of the same things that you might see white developers do. It's a lot of it is just money. Money. And it's folks not putting people first. What you doing? What you doing? You're answering a text. Hey,
no, I'm right.
Oh, I'm like, who is it? Who we texting?
I'm writing story ideas.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what do you have written so far?
I mean, you was talking about Black developers, and then I just needed to also put it down, thinking about gentrification. I know that I've been thinking about these ideas, but I needed to just write it down so I can remember to come back to it.
And this is what journalists do. We talk and then we get ideas from each other. You know, Andrea may be experiencing something in St. Louis that I am not necessarily here, but I'm feeling an echo of it. It just lets me get ahead of the game. You know, having a journalist that I can talk to about things, someone that I respect and admire their work, Andrea Henderson, is really essential and important because as Black journalists, in particular now, my gosh, we really need to support each other. You know, the time is over where, you know, look, the whole broadcast journalism thing, that's kind of in and of itself gone. CNN Plus did not last for a month. And I should know because my best friend was a part of it. So, you know, people are...
Did they land on their feet? Did they go somewhere else?
We just gonna pray, you know, because the you know, CNN is like, you know, we'll you know, give folks opportunities. And again, it's what's happening is a lot of merging is happening. And with these mergers, you have duplicative jobs and you're like, okay, well, this is the company that acquired you. So my person is going to now be the chief marketing officer, not your person. So it really is very tumultuous. And it's tough. I've been through, and you will find this in your career as well. I went through a lot of news directors, and a little bit of turmoil with the general managers too. They run the station, all of the station from news to the business component of it, the general manager of the station. But you know, back to radio. How many Black folks are listening to NPR? Do y'all have statistics on stuff like that?
I'm sure
or people of color?
I'm sure they do. Let's look it up.
You know, do you have like your family and friends? Are they NPR listeners?
They only started listening to it because I work there.
See, this is my point. Yeah. You have to feel like you are connecting with the person who is disseminating and gathering information. And if you don't have some folks who look like the community, Black, Indigenous, other people of color, immigrants, refugees, if you don't have that, then I'm feeling a disconnect. So what Andrea is able to do is she has this great opportunity with this bastion of liberalism and this bastion of whiteness, quite frankly. She has an opportunity to turn the corner for them, to change the way they are seen, to bring other people into the fold, to say, hey, maybe you don't like whatever, but I'm doing my thing. Well, then I'm going to listen. Because the minute I get in Peter's car, I turn that down and I put my hip hop on. I'm like, no. Let me go listen to some old Camp Low. Sparkling. So, you know, it's visceral for me that, you know, I used to go in the newsroom and tease everybody. I don't want to hear about none of y'all who listened to NPR this morning. Y'all all got the same. It was just a big joke that Angela is not an NPR listener. And there are Black folks on NPR, but let me just say this. There has been an exodus of African-American talent at NPR in DC. And, you know, my prayer is that folks are going to bigger and better things. But the
it's actually been people of color. Like,
no, I know. Did I say Black people?
You said Black people, but
it's people of color.
People of color, yeah, okay. Like hosts of color. You know, like Lulu left. The host of Code Switch, one of the hosts of Code Switch, Shireen Marisol Maraji, she left. Audie left. Audie Cornish left. You know, it's been a few folks that left. And those are just like the ones that we would hear on a daily basis or a weekly basis. but it's some folks that, were behind the scenes that left, of the reporters or producers. I know they had a politics reporter, Braxton, what's Braxton's last name? He ended up leaving and he went to Politico. So it's like a lot of folks, of people of color have left NPR. And
I have
it's
Politico
not just,
on my phone, by the way. I have Politico on my phone. It's one of the things I read.
And I don't even think it's just the headquarters of NPR. Yes, every place, every media company had been dealing with, the fallout after, the George Floyd incident and Black Lives Matter protests or whatnot, the reckoning between, media companies and things like that. But it really took a toll on a number of NPR stations, like their local stations or whatnot. So a lot of people of color and reporters who stood for, equity and things like that and didn't see that it was happening for the people of color, they moved on as well. So
that's a problem in NPR. That's a problem. Recognize that's a problem.
And I can only say that because I know we had our struggles here at St. Louis Public Radio. And then also I saw a lot of it happening on Twitter, but you saw things happening at BuzzFeed. You saw things happening
at BuzzFeed, got it.
And just
everywhere.
Yeah, like ABC, CNN, it was just a lot of different places that people were coming out and saying like, okay, this has happened to me too. Like I've had these incidents and I'm not standing for it anymore. And here's our letter from the people of color that work here. This is what we want. So like, it's just media in general, especially, when it comes to those mediums where black folks for sure, but black and brown folks have not been treated equally, from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Let me switch gears here for just a second. One of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast is because of the pandemic. And I know it has been difficult for people to feel connected to other people. And I understand the power of needing to feel connected. And I think I felt the need to be a little more connected. I, have done a podcast before, created a podcast before, as a successful journalist for 15 years. But I branded another podcast and didn't move forward with it. I just kept looking for the right thing. And this is it, because I'm all about power and connecting and what that means. And, one of the things during the pandemic, Andrea, that I thought about and that I saw too, I love love. I mean, I just do. I'm a sucker for love. Which means I've made mistakes. But, I was concerned about my sisters during the pandemic, women and men. I mean, trying to have a relationship. How the hell do you do that during a pandemic? So like, what has love been like for you? Or what has it been like, during this pandemic? Is it tougher as an African-American woman trying to find love? Was it like trying to find love in St. Louis? Let's talk love on the Power to Connect.
You're so silly.
I am.
I mean, like I've always been the type of person where I put myself first before a lot of things. And my goals in life, was I always felt like I needed to have like, I wouldn't even say like my career, but I would say like the things that I felt made me feel whole and good, that I was doing something in the world, which was the thing that I love, which was writing and, talking and communicating. And so my journalism came first for me. It always came first for me. I was very like, I can't let anybody like take this dream away from me. And I wanted to make sure that I did that. And so, with that, I did, have relationships in between and things like that, or I dated in between or whatnot. But I remember when I left Houston, I was just like, okay, I'm in focus mode, I'm in grind mode. And when I'm in grind mode, I don't really pay attention to anything else but myself. And I get selfish. And if I meet somebody, if I start dating somebody, I already know if it's going to be something or if it's not going to be something. I can tell from the beginning, especially depending on like what kind of grind mode I'm in. If I'm in grind mode and I don't have no other time, maybe you only may get my weekend time, not my talking daytime or whatnot, then I will already know that. However, when I came to St. Louis, I felt a little bit more like relaxed, a little bit more like settled, a little bit more like, okay, like.
So wait a minute, was it harder to date in DC?
It was just
different.
It was just that was a new city for me. I had work on my mind. I had to impress folks. I really didn't have time to like. I was in the newsroom.
Put it in order.
Time.
That's right. Put it in order.
I just had to like really. I knew that the type, especially with the type of parents that I have. If you F something up, Andrea, they gonna tell you, come on back home. You're doing too much. And so like, I just knew
that's right.
My priorities. Mm-hmm. And so I was just like, okay, I'm here for a few months. I got to get this job. And once I get this job, then I'm gonna be good. Like I can figure out everything else after that. And that's kind of like what it was like. I mean, I dated a few people while I was in DC, but to be honest, I didn't really have a lot of men coming up to me or asking me out. And I wonder if that's because I was giving off grind mode vibes, like not like I want to date vibes, I don't know. I mean, I was the same old Andrea, but it was fun. I went out with my friends, I did the regular, hanging out life, but I don't know if it was just because the people that I did meet, it was just like, at, restaurants or through friends and things like that. But to be honest, I don't even think I was in the mind space for like to actually date somebody like that, because I knew that DC could be, home, but it may not be. Mm-hmm. So let me not put all my eggs in like DC. And so like, I think with that in the back of my mind, I was just like, okay, like if something happens, something happens. If it don't, oh well, I'm moving on anyways. So, but when I got
let me pause you for a second, because you used a word that I don't think applies to you. And I know when folks tell you something about themselves, believe it. But I don't think the word selfish is the right word to ascribe to what it was you were doing, which is you were putting things in order. And when you are working on your career, that is the focus. And you want to be able to focus on someone, you want to be able to give them your attention. I can't do that right now. I'm focusing on my career. I need to get my stuff together, and so I need folks to listen to what you're saying and to understand that there is an order of things. And however you choose to order your life is how you choose to order it. But Andrea and I chose to order it thusly. We have to be able to take care of ourselves. Our families are going to require that. We require that of ourselves as well. And so let me handle this first. And then, I can pursue and see how things are. And let me just say this too, Andrea. One of the reasons I got out of television news is because I didn't trust anyone. I didn't trust anyone to date. And I just didn't. I mean, I thought, you just want to go out with me because I'm Angela Rae. I got married when I was Angela Rae, and I was like, So, when I left news and went to DC, I purposely went to DC. I got on Match, something I couldn't do before because of my status. So I got on Match, and
I can't believe you got on there.
Match, and I had some really good dates in DC.
Really,
but nobody, like a guy who worked at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. I mean, like really, smart people. But I was like, something wasn't hitting. And I was like, well, I'm more of a New York type girl. So I'm like, let me look at the New York folks. A girl engaged someone. He was like, yeah, let's go out. Went to New York. Hot mess, but hilarious. He was one of the founders of Barney's of New York. And he had all these crazy stories about people. But then he tried to get a second date and that wasn't going to happen because you never asked a question about me. So yeah, I went on Match for a hot second and I forgot that the guy I worked with, my guy, that he had given me his phone number. So that's how that went. So take the word selfish out because you are not being selfish when you are making a concerted effort to better yourself. Mm-hmm. That's not being selfish because again, there's a time and a place for everything. And when it's the right time, it'll be the right person and it'll do this. It'll just flow naturally. So you go to St. Louis and what's it like dating down yonder?
Let me go back for really quickly. Just, thinking about you saying when I said I'm being selfish, a lot of women, or especially Black women, are not allowed to, take matters into their own hands when it comes to their careers, their selves. And, we fall into the pattern of we want to have kids, we want to get married, we want to do this, but we'll let our boyfriend or our husband do what they want to do, get their career together. And then we help them with that. By the time they get to where they are, now it's like 10 years later and you're like, oh, I need to go back to accounting school, or, oh, I need to go back to journalism school, whatever, get my degree because I fell off because I wanted to get married and have kids and stuff like that. And I had so many friends that did that. Granted, they may have gotten their degrees, but they're working jobs that they didn't have passion for. When I remember when we were in school and, a few friends of mine, they would say they want to do this and do that, but life happened and they still are not doing those things. And I just kept telling myself, I don't want to be like that. I know what God has put me on this earth to do. And so I have to do that. And if I do something else, then I'm going to be sitting there at that job thinking like, why am I in this space? Like, I just knew that I wouldn't be a good person for anybody or even for myself if I wasn't doing the thing that God has called me to do.
Amen.
And so that is why I stayed with it. Whether it was 5 years or 10 years down the line, I stayed with it because I knew that this was exactly what God had called me to do. And it may have taken me a few years later, but I got back to it. But so yes, a lot of Black women, we don't get the luxury of just saying, I'm doing something for myself. But what I did like about during the pandemic, what I did notice about Black women, we were starting to take some of that power back and saying, you know what? Because I saw a lot of single ladies on, Instagram or Twitter and just talking about their lives and them thinking about themselves and their careers and what they want to do in life, their goals and things like that. So they started to take their power back during the pandemic because they slowed down and they realized what was most important to them. So with that said, moving to St. Louis, I went on a few dates when I first came to St. Louis, but I still was kind of.
How'd you meet them?
With the ones that I went on dates with.
Everybody meets at a bar, so don't feel shame if you I was at a bar and I met him. You met him at church. It most like it was always in the beginning. It was most like it was always somebody that introduced me to that person. Maybe I was out and about at an interview or something like that. And I saw somebody and they was like, hey, we should go out on a coffee date or something like that. But it was nothing to the point where I was just like head over heels with somebody, or I can't even remember going out on 2 and 3 dates with the same person. But, there was somebody that I met when I actually first got here that he doesn't live here, but he was he was at the airport when I had met him the same day that I moved here. But it was cool. I didn't think it was gonna be longer than what it was, but I just thought it was just gonna be like, oh, you flying in now. It's just gonna be like a little weekend thing. But we stayed in touch, and probably during the pandemic we got a little bit closer. And I think it was, just because we were at home, I wasn't out and about moving around a lot. He wasn't moving around a lot. And we just clicked from there. You engaged or something? You need to tell me something? Okay.
Girl, I'm still single.
I see some beautiful rings, but okay.
Baby, nope, I'm still single.
Well, I know.
Married.
I know I've told you this story before, and I'm going to fess up to folks that, remember I told you that I went to do this interview, and the person I was supposed to interview, I think he was doing something real good work with kids, and he was talking to a kid, and there was an older lady who was seated there. And so I said hello, and I sat next to her, and we got to talking. And so the gentleman finished, I interviewed him, and we were kind of loitering around, and the mother came up to both of us, and she said, Angela, I would like for you to go on a date with my son. Hello, what just happened here? Oh my God. And oh my God, I felt so badly. Like, wait, he can't say no. I mean, what? So I was like, and so then he said, can you give me your card? And so I gave him my card, and we dated for a little bit. So I've had mom fix me up. And
Mom
then I've had
me up too.
See, that's just us. We get because they know I'd be good in the
yeah, I like when a mama picks me up. That means you like me, and that means that you're gonna stay out of our business too. You're gonna push me to your son.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, the longer you stay in this business, you will have some of the funniest stories. Oh my God. When I went to cover the O.J. Simpson civil trial, supposed to be also covering Ennis Cosby's death, and the civil trial broke, and I did the best live shot I've ever done in my life. And then we went back to the hotel. I said, I need to take my photographer to give me the best Italian restaurant in town. Guy said, I'm going to send you up the road here. Girl, we went there, and I was at the bar, and the bartender was kind of flirting, and he was like, well, you see, Madonna's over there. What? And you see Heavy D's right there. I'm like, pause for cause, my brother. I'll be right back. Girl, I went up to the table. I did what people do to me, but I tried to pull it off. So I went up to the table, and I said hello to everyone. And I spoke specifically to him. I said, I'm a huge fan. I said, my name's Angela Rae. I said, I work for CBS. And so he was so nice. He said, tell me why you're here. And so I told him. And so I was trying to wrap it up. And girl, I thought out of the corner of my eye, one of the people was Bruce Springsteen. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. So
I met him.
I just said, pleasure to meet you. And I walked up. Years later, I got to meet Bruce Springsteen, but not then. And it was just one of those, it was like the best night ever. And then all this other weird, wacky stuff was happening. Our business is crazy. We just enjoy yourself, have fun. And I'm going to tell you this too. I understand that you think your focus is, radio or, something where we're not seeing your face, and understand that, it's all a part of who you are and your Black brilliance. You are opting to do what you want to do. And that's the position we all want you to be in. Everybody who's watching, listening, we want you to be in a position where you can decide what you want to do, and how you want to do it. This is a young lady who, she did everything right. She understood that you need to get people on your side. People are like, I don't understand. Why did Angela Rae get all this? You got to get people on your side. You have to be impressive. And that's your talent. And that's also the way you communicate, the way you connect powerfully with people. Don't not connect with somebody because of their race. Don't not connect with someone because of their gender, sexual orientation, disability. You're missing out if you do that.
Yeah.
Andrea Henderson with NPR St. Louis. It has been a sheer delight to share some time with a fellow journalist. You are going places. We're just going to keep up with you. This is not our last time talking to you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy, your effort, your commitment to the community. Thank you for being a citizen of the world and understanding that God put you on this earth to do something specific, something special that is just for you, and that you see that and you are pursuing that. That makes my heart swell with pride and with joy. And I just want to thank you for spending some time with us today, showing us again how to connect powerfully, because that's what the Power to Connect with Angela Rae is all about. So you take care of yourself, boo-boo, and I'm going to keep in touch. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Have a good one, my love. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe to The Power to Connect with Angela Rae and follow her on Facebook. You can also stay connected on Twitter and Instagram at AngelaRae.com.